Okay, so continuing our controversial saga of patch 1.1, it seems Blizzard has finally caved in and they will address some of the recent changes. I guess tomorrow on Friday there's going to be a brand new live stream planned. So this won't actually include any patches, but will include a discussion of what's going to happen next, and most likely a new patch will happen at a later date. But in the meantime, we do have a hotfix that just went out, and it seems Helltide Cinder drop rates have also been fixed. Also quite a bit more to talk about and more official info for those of you who don't know if they're going to stick with Season 1 and maybe want to skip but still keep the upgrade for the Battle Pass. So we're going to talk about that and more in this video. So starting with the Helltide, if you haven't paid any attention to it, there were actually a couple of really annoying nerfs that kind of got a lot of people pissed off. So one of them was to the mysterious chests, which were the only thing worth it in the entire event. They increased the number of cinders required to open them to 250 from 175. The problem was that at the same time this was going, they also reduced the number of cinders dropping from the Helltide events, and it was so bad that you could literally not get 250 cinders needed to just open one of the chests in a whole 1 hour Helltide. So at least on that side we have some good news, as there's a new hotfix that went live a few hours ago that addresses this. So they fixed an issue where the overall drop rates of aberrant cinders in Helltides were lower than intended. Plus, they also brought back the Seeds of Hatred buff in PvP that was previously, I believe, involved in some kind of exploit with the Necromancers and the Druid pets. So this is now working with that hotfix enabled, and yeah, it should be fine, I guess. But the biggest one over here, the takeaway, is that those Helltides are finally fixed. They only took like 30 hours to fix it, by the way, which is a bit ironic given the fact that when Uber Uniques were dropping like mad, like I believe 2 weeks ago, they fixed it in no more than a few hours, like a few minutes, I believe. So yeah, definitely priorities over there. But we talked about going back on some of the changes, and Blizzard actually already started at least with a couple of them. So the level requirements that were added, well, stealthily in patch 1.1 to even enter World Tier 3 and 4 have been reduced, or well, actually removed entirely. So up until a few hours ago, you actually needed to be a certain level to even enter World Tier 3. I believe it was level 40 for World Tier 3 and level 60 to enter World Tier 4. Some other users reported it was actually 50 and 70 respectively, which I guess caused a lot of uproar, and for good reason, as people found this by accident when boosting their low-level friends or even boosting somebody for the heck of it. I do that too sometimes, or I used to do it because I have 2 accounts and I had them since day 1, and I let one of my friends to play on one of these accounts, but he isn't as committed to the game as I am, so sometimes I just get like one of these characters ready for them to play. But otherwise, this is clearly intended at this power level boosting of low level characters. Blizzard doesn't want you to just breeze through the content. They want you to spend as much time with the game as possible, because this is the entire thesis of Diablo 4 if you just look at the most basic functions of the game. Even when just sitting in town, there's a reason why your stash and each vendors are so far away from one another and pretty much on the opposite sides. It's because these are time sinks. These are put in your place so that they can extend the time you spend in the game and hopefully buy something from it, or just engage more with the content and just spend as much time as possible in Diablo 4, which oftentimes, unfortunately, introduces these really annoying time sinks. And that is also the reason why they pretty much nerfed power leveling now in the new update, as you can no longer gain the massive boost of benefits with the XP raise that you would get as a level 1 while getting boosted in World Tier 3 and then World Tier 4 and Nightmare Dungeons and so on. Because previously it would take a couple of hours at most to boost a character to level 60 if you already had a high level account. Now, there's also the question of what happens to the premium battle pass unlocks that those who got the digital deluxe and ultimate editions of the game have right now. Do you get forced to use them in season 1, or can there be a seasonal skip? Well, there's been official confirmation from both the game leads on Twitter that actually, yes, it's possible to keep that for a later season. And I want you to keep that season as in singular in mind, because it only works for one season skip. So Adam Fletcher said this on Twitter: you will be able to activate it via the Battle Pass menu after you start a seasonal character and can be claimed for season 1 or a future season. Another user then asked for a clarification if that means we can keep the premium pass and skip for only one season of our choice or for all of the coming seasons, to which Adam replied that only one. So the way I'm reading this, you can only skip one season with the premium battle pass, so this means we can only keep it up until season 2, including season 2. So if you don't plan on playing season 1 right now, you can just hold it off and wait until season 2 drops. Maybe by then Diablo 4 will be a bit more fleshed out, and maybe we might get some more buffs in there and make the game a bit better, so you can use it in season 2. But if you're planning to keep it until season 3, 4, 5, 6 and so on, that's not going to be possible. Now let's also jump over that developer campfire livestream that they are planning for this Friday. So at the end of the week, there's going to be one that will address some of the feedback that players gave regarding the changes in patch 1.1. Now, I would totally not expect this update to drop anytime soon, at least not until next week at the very least, maybe a bit more than that. And keep in mind that even this developer livestream will happen one day after Season 1 has already begun. I believe that at the time of recording this video, Season 1 begins in about 10 more hours. So you're still going to continue with the same class nerfs and stat nerfs as we have right now, and especially for sorcerers out there, I believe it's going to be maybe hell, but who knows, maybe the leveling process isn't going to be affected that much since the class is still great at leveling. But otherwise, I would also not expect major changes or complete reverts on those class nerfs either, because I just don't see Blizzard going back so much on the philosophy that they just introduced, which is basically we're too powerful and we're clearing things too fast. We need to scale that down a bit. So I'm just not seeing those damage stats being unnerfed, or at most, if that happens, maybe it's just going to be a fine-tune kind of change. So instead of a 50% drop off in certain stats, it's only going to be like 40 or 35%. But yeah, still expect for things to remain nerfed for like pretty much the entire duration of the game, or at least until something different and drastic changes. I am, however, keeping hopes high that the damage reduction nerfs are going to get changed and maybe brought down a little bit or fine-tuned a bit. Honestly, I think these were definitely the most uncalled for changes in the entire update, and no reason for them to even exist. Like, even if you completely stack damage reduction, you're still going to get absolutely destroyed in high-level dungeons unless you like just breeze through enemies and take them away before they get the chance to get close to you. Some of the classes are so squishy, in fact, that no matter how much damage reduction you would add before update 1.1, you would still be squishy as heck. So yeah, that's just my opinion. Now, if you look at the overall scores that the game is getting on Metacritic and pretty much everywhere, yeah, just everybody hates the new update. So much so that the score rating for the user reviews has dropped to 3.1, which is a really big low. Now, at the time of recording this video, there are about 3,000 negative comments. I believe that when I started looking at this was only 2,000, and I can only imagine there's going to be a lot more. I keep refreshing and I get like a few, like dozens more on top on the previous ones. But basically, everybody is complaining about the same old thing. The fact that the end game, once you reach a certain point, isn't as satisfying as how it was until that point. And even more so with the new update, now that you feel so much weaker, it just feels like a slog to continue to play. Why continue to play and have a worse character than ever before and even less chances to see any upgrades significant enough for your gear? Because once you reach level 75, 80, 85, from that point on, there's literally no reason to play unless you're specifically looking for best in slot items. So I think that they kind of screwed the pooch a little bit with itemization at World Tier 4, and once you reach certain levels, 85 and above, there's like no reason to do anything at that point anymore, unless you really want level 100 or you're a really hardcore kind of player. Some content creators even came up with a list of their own of some of the notes and changes they want to see. So really good constructive feedback here that Blizzard could take into account. And I said about that increase in monster density, I'm glad to see that others agree with me. So Nightmare Dungeon, bring that up to like 50% in terms of monster density, which actually brings us to day one of launch, because yeah, before that Blizzard actually slashed it in half for many of the top dungeon picks anyway. Also, Nightmare Dungeons intermission rooms now have a 20% chance to spawn a special vendor, and actually that's not a bad idea. I would go a step forward and say that intermediate rooms in dungeons should get something special happen in them, not just like spawning a vendor. Maybe just spawn a lot more of those loot twinks, or get something cool out of them, maybe an increased chance for certain items to drop, and know that even if it's in your way, there's a good reason to push through it and like just have something come out of it. Also, no channel time for any objectives in Nightmare Dungeons. Nightmare Dungeon negative affixes reducing in power by approximately 50%. Not sure I agree with this one. I think that the affixes, and even though some of them are really annoying, could be just left like the way they are. Maybe with the exception of the CC that constantly gets applied, just add some sort of internal cooldown, or like just mitigation the more you get added, so you can resist some of it the more it gets added on your character. Also, cursed chests, shrines, healing wells now spawn 50% more monsters and 50% faster. I totally agree with that one. Would definitely love to see. There are a few actually that do spawn quite a lot of enemies, but sometimes you just like feel the urge to have even more over there. Uniques of specific type, drop of their corresponding Helltide chests, would totally be on board with that. Helltide commanders drop 100% more cinders, would definitely love that. These are all sensible changes right here that literally everybody who played through this content sees and already knows should be there. It's just Blizzard that for some reason doesn't see it. It's like they don't even play their own game. Anyway, that is about it with the news for now. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.